Hail cheaters. Welcome to the Always Cheating Podcast. Thank you for joining us. My name is Josh. Happy to be back. Thank you to Pat Riley, the other Pat Riley, for filling in on last week's podcast. Yeah. And Brandon, how are you?
Thank you for asking, Josh. As always, I'm doing great. We enjoyed what our friends in the UK would call a holiday today.
I think everyone calls it a holiday. You mean a bank holiday?
Yeah, but I guess I kind of second guess myself. Like, is the bank holiday the same thing as a holiday? Let's try not to get into it. I needed a bit of a breather, admittedly, Josh, from the events of Sunday. I think both you and I were riding pretty high with the game week 3 going into Sunday. Yeah. We'll get into it. Liverpool is a bit of a thorn in our side.
Oh, you didn't enjoy increasing your rank by 3.5 times in the final match of the game week before a 2-week break.
I mean, I don't want to whinge too much because the fact that one match did change the rank so much just shows early season, blah, blah, blah. We're all still very tight. Things will obviously change come game week 4.
Yeah.
But what we need to figure out here, Josh, is what's the plan?
Yeah.
Like, if those who don't have Salah, what's the plan? Those who don't have Haaland, what's the plan? Those who don't have, I don't know, Brian Mbomo, do we need a plan there?
Yep. I mean, I don't know about Mbomo. The other two, I talked about it a little bit. I have not shouted this out yet, but just as a heads up, because I don't want to get into too much. We promote enough stuff, Brandon, including our own stuff on here. But I did start a Substack for Always Cheating a couple of weeks ago called the FPL Scouting Notebook. Now, of course, we're not supplanting the many, many great newsletters that are out there, Brandon, but this is just quick thoughts from every match, right? So I did this afternoon. I'm really enjoying these. I spent a good 2 hours this afternoon.
They're great. They're honestly great. You. I mean, when you had this idea, you pitched it to me and you were inspired by some NFL fantasy content that you were consuming.
Yep.
Where is the very short, brief, quippy, digestible, fun email that you can just read with your morning coffee after the game week is over? So this is a good compliment to the pod.
Thank you very much. And they were fun to do. I was worried I was going to fade after 1, but after 3, I still feel good. Let's see how I feel when I'm 6.9 million, overall. But so far, I actually was technically on a green arrow, by the way, this week. Shockingly, I was up it was one of those 15,000, green arrows, but I'll take it. So the Substack, though, is just alwayscheating.substack.com. Easy enough. So just alwayscheating.substack.com. Subscribe, of course, Brandon. And but let's get back to fantasy proper. It was, I suppose it's one of those weeks where if you had flipped the fixtures, I'd be feeling great right now, right? I mean, as you said, it's the timing is a big factor here, right? If we had ended with if Man City at West Ham had been the final match of the game week, you and I would be over the moon, right? About this miracle green arrow. I'd be talking to, instead of I just got a green, I nicked a green arrow, it would be I cannot believe I got a green arrow after this weekend, right? So it's all about how you look at it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, we're separated by 1 point, and last week maybe separated by 5 to 10 points.
Yeah,
I'm on a distinct red arrow. I went from 540K to just the wrong side of a million.
Yeah.
So it's strange, but I was honestly a little flabbergasted at that Salah.
What went wrong?
Ding
Can you share your team with me so I can take a look here? I'm curious.
Sure.
What happened.
Yeah.
Where did it all go wrong? I want to know.
I mean, yeah. So you can see here, I started game week 1, 2.1 mil, and now we're at 1.01 mil. Points are 70 points, game week rank of 4 million. It really went wrong in all of the marginal characters. Morgan Rogers is probably the biggest person to blame here because he and João Pedro were my 2 transfers. I dropped the injured Solanke for João Pedro and thought, well, this is a uniquely difficult fixture for Brighton going to the Emirates. And it looked like Brighton were going to be held until the Declan Rice red card.
Yep.
That was a very nice goal by Brighton. Ultimately, interesting write-ups in the Athletic about how Arsenal's defense was perhaps a little shambolic prior to the red card, but I didn't feel like this goal was coming and until they got
teams are always
rattled.
going to have chances, right? I mean, even Man City. I mean, obviously, Man City have been conceded multiple goals for the season, but yeah, I mean, the other teams always going to have chances. So you can it's easy to like rewrite the narrative, but it is rare to because you brought in Pedro and then you put him first on your bench, which I assume was a price change thing, right? I think he was set to rise, and then you assumed that Solanke was set to fall. He has still not fallen once.
I guess Solanke was locked because of injury. Who bloody knows?
Sure.
And I did bring João Pedro in largely because of both Solanke perhaps going down and Pedro going up, and then Morgan Rogers, because I started him. I thought I was really impressed by his performance against Arsenal, and I thought surely he would get a return against Leicester and Aston Villa. Just even though it's Onana's team at this point. He looks so strong in the midfield.
It's interesting because they're the same price, and Morgan Rogers is the number 10, and Onana is ostensibly like a kind of box to box. I mean, he basically is doing what. Oh my goodness, why am I forgetting his name? The player who was their box to box player last season, whose name I'm
Douglas Luiz.
Douglas Luiz, thank you. And it may be that the thing about Unai Emery's system that just lends itself to a little bit of freedom from these deep line players, or it's just kind of fluky. But it does feel a little unusual that you would basically go from this deep line player that was a great fantasy because Luis was a pretty good fantasy asset last season, and for Onana to be kind of in the same boat now, and it's like, but still, I don't think I would recommend an Onana transfer.
Well, his first goal came from a set piece, so that one is kind of like not necessarily what you qualify as an open play goal.
Sure.
But yeah, I am a little bummed about how I set up my team going into this weekend. But you see the logic. Anthony Gordon has been a differential for me, and he got his goal last week, which was very useful.
Yep.
And now he's traded with Isak, and the problem is Isak is owned by a much larger percentage of fantasy managers. And then guys like Smith Rowe and Konsa, very quiet. Diego Jota, the Liverpool player the one Liverpool player that you and I both own was the guy to not have this particular game week.
That's a weird.
Okay, so I was feeling here's the silver lining. I was feeling very bad about Dean Henderson after game week 2, and I was already teetering and saying, no, I want a premium goalkeeper. 4 points from Dean Henderson feels like he basically got a 10-pointer. And he's got a nice home fixture coming up in game week 4. Yeah. So I've gone from maybe strategizing, changing my goalkeeper.
You get
strategy
this is my editorial comment here is that I think you get too worked up about goalkeepers, and it's like, it's a real, like, don't sweat the small stuff thing to me, because it's just very hard to get it right. The difference between a really expensive goalkeeper and a mediocre goalkeeper is marginal in terms of the total point. Like, maybe in a particular run of fixtures, you want the better keeper, but even then there's reasons why, right, that we've talked about many times before, well, why you don't want the more expensive keeper, right? Like, let's say you get David Raya. Well, what happens if Arsenal have an incredible run of attacking fixtures, which they do in like 7 or 8 weeks? You're really going to want to have one of those Arsenal defenders, right? Because they're great at, they're great at hoovering up bonus points, matches where they keep clean sheets, Sleep in particular. Obviously, Gabriel's really good on set pieces. Ben White gets attacking returns. But then you probably are going to want to have 2 Arsenal attackers as well, right? And so suddenly you have this keeper who, probably has a slightly better chance of keeping a clean sheet than a 4.5 million keeper, but you've gobbled up one of your Arsenal spots, right? Now that can't be a double up in the midfield or Havertz or whatever. And he also is almost never going to get bonus points during the good fixtures, right? Because they're going to keep clean sheets and they're going to be 4-0 wins or something like that, right? And even if you just like look at like just sheer like clean sheet odd percentages, right? It's like a team that is heavily favored to keep a clean sheet in a match, and you look at like the Vegas odds or whatever, and it's like they're maybe 50% at absolute best to keep a clean sheet, right? And the team that you think is going to get smoked is like 40%. right? So the difference is pretty low. So I didn't mean to go on a little micro rant there, but I just think like I actually I think Henderson is a perfectly viable goalkeeper pick.
Yeah. For the premium goalkeeper, I think the interesting one would be Allison. And that becomes sort of a discussion of where you're at with your budget and Trent. And because Trent is remarkably more expensive than any of these guys. And I think then Allison becomes an interesting points grabber for all those clean sheets and possibly covering your rivals who do have Trent. But anyway, I don't totally disagree with you. And now that the vibes have shifted, it was the great goalkeeper vibe shift in game week 3 for me. And I'm feeling just fine with Dean Henderson. What about you? Let's throw your team up on the screen.
Yeah. So, well, there's some big news, which is that I have activated my wild card. That happened a couple of hours ago. I just was looking at everything that was happening, looking at price changes, looking at my squad, looking at who I wanted. And I was like, this is going to be so exhausting to get there through normal transfers, right? It's like, it's such a mess. And I'm going to get crushed on team value, which happened to me last season. And it drove me absolutely crazy at the end of the year, and honestly, part of it was just me being a little disengaged, I think, early on in the season last year. And I was off to, I mean, this is, I think, a real problem. And I actually, you probably, if you're as disengaged as I was feeling last year, you're probably not even listening to this pod right now, because it's hard to, I mean, part of the problem is that when you get, like, I was off to a really bad start. I mean, both of us kind of were, last season. And I was like, screw this. Like, I felt kind of like, I just was like a little, like, kind of, what's the word? I don't know, just salty about it. Right. And I think like the problem then is you like kind of get away from playing strategically. Right. Because you're like, I don't even want to think about FPL for, like, it's the international break is here. I'm going to go 11 days without thinking about FPL. Right.
You're not a high performance manager at that point.
Yeah, exactly. And so, in a window like that, you might be a 0.5, 0.6 price. Like, every option that might have been available to you in a wildcard is now done. Right. And so I sort of was just thinking about it, and I was like, well, I kind of have to decide, like, literally before we do this podcast, if I'm going to do it or not. Okay. Because it was just like, I don't even have like Pedro the way you do. Right. And so I started tinkering a little bit, and I was like, I think I like this team quite a bit better. And because you can now save 5 transfers, I don't see as much. I don't see as much of a rationale for like waiting for like a rainy day to play my wild card. Right. It was like, I'm just going to kind of wild card and be a slightly aggressive, although I wouldn't say that I'm wild carding from like a position of great strength. I mean, I'm like 984,000 overall. I'm doing fine, right? Like, it's not like a bad start, but like, I just don't look at my squad and think, oh yeah, like, I'm going to crush it these next few weeks, right? I look at it and think, oh my God, how much further down am I going to go over the next 3 weeks before I can fix it with transfers, right? And so I think that was what kind of motivated me to go ahead and play the wild card. But just before we do that, I'll share my screen with you. And again, I know we're sharing screens, and we do, obviously, this is still a podcast. This is an audio medium, and so I don't want anyone to think that but I think, just in general, it's just that you and I can look at this together, right? While we're
of course,
while we're talking about it, and I'll just try to be sort of conscious that I don't make reference to video stuff that that people who are listening can't see. So yeah, but 77 points in the game week. It was I thought like, again, I felt if Salah doesn't absolutely go off, then I'm feeling pretty good about this game week, right? I was going into that Liverpool match, I was around 300K overall, and feeling pretty solid about kind of pushing on. And I think after that match, I mean, I think the interesting thing is Jota, who you mentioned already, and what we should do there. It's a question I haven't fully resolved yet, because I don't know what the answer is with him. I mean, like, I think he's fine. I think he's a good asset. It's like the fact that David Luiz has been outscoring him the last 2 weeks. I still feel like Jota is the preferred option of the two 7.5 million Liverpool midfielders. I mean, do you feel like David Luiz or Douglas Geez.
Too many Luises.
Luis Diaz. Yeah. Do you feel like Luis Diaz has now supplanted Jota as the preferred second midfield option on Liverpool?
Well, if you just take the FPL points, yes, obviously.
Well, sure.
But how can we? Then you put yourself into this position of trying to predict the future. Do we think that Diogo Jota has had particularly bad matches the last 2 matches? No.
Right.
Do I think that the team functions better without Diogo Jota in the starting 11? 100% not. So then it becomes a very difficult question of how long of a view do I want to take? How patient do I have to be to actually get the value that I need out of Diogo Jota? And that's just a harder question to answer. I don't feel like if you're thinking, I just want to spend one free transfer over the international break, Jota to Luis Diaz doesn't feel like a worthwhile transfer to me.
Not at all. If not a step backwards, right? I mean, it almost feels it's a little bit, it's not quite the same because it's not as extreme, but it's a little bit like the Morgan Rogers Onana situation, right? It's like looking at what we've seen so far, you'd think, yeah, maybe Onana's the guy, right? But then if you sort of look at it more rationally and you just look at like positioning and right, like shots, and you're like, you still kind of feel like you want, I think, Jota and you want Morgan Rogers if you had to pick, 2 of those 4. So, but I think it's really tricky. And so, unfortunately, I think what bummed me out a little bit were my transfers were both kind of busts. I brought in Concept and Smith Rowe. I think honestly, this is really why I have decided to wild card, by the way, too, is I just made too many mistakes in my game week 1 draft. And I just can't quite solve them all through transfers. And I mean, I have Lewis Hall, who's set to drop in price tonight. We'll see if it actually happens, right? The price changes have been a little unpredictable, but Hall set to drop in price. I haven't even had a chance to move him yet, right? Because I had to move Kwanzaa. I had to move Nkuku. I guess those are kind of the biggest ones. But even like Son, like I sort of feel a little caught out right now with Son. I mean, I got a great return from him in game week 2, but at the moment it feels like I kind of have the 4th best of the expensive midfielders. I have the 4th best one, right? Yeah. And so that kind of feels like another issue that I want to solve. But and if I could just go from like Son to Palmer or whatever, or even just get Salah with like 2 transfers, I might have considered just doing that, even if I had to burn 4 possibly. But it's the fact that I have to fix all these other issues still, right? That make it tricky. And so even
Harwood Bellis, even pre 60 minutes. Not that anyone's going to lose sleep over your like last guy.
Totally. I mean, maybe Harwood Bellis too. Exactly. So
wait, you were going to say something about Flecken. You've got beef with Flecken now?
He's trash. The whole defense is trash. I don't know. I'm sure when game week 38 rolls around, Flecken will be the 3rd highest rated keeper on the season. And I will miss out on every amazing return of his. I'm sure that's true. But I like this Brighton team, Brendan. I want to continue liking this Brighton team. I'm not positive I can like this Brighton team if I have
Brentford, right?
Brentford, both. But maybe he'll transfer.
We like them all.
Yeah, maybe he'll move in January to Brighton. I mean, who knows, right? So I'm referring to both. No, Brentford. I want to continue enjoying watching this Brentford team play, and I can't right now because I'm stricken with anxiety over when Flecken is going to concede a goal, and it seems to come later and later each week, and so I want this trash out of my team. I actually kind of like Brentford long term. I think it's around game week 7 maybe when they start a really nice run of fixtures, and I think Johan Wissa is somebody that we haven't really talked about too much, but with Ivan Toney, officially, did he go to Saudi Arabia, wherever he went?
I haven't seen any news yet.
Yeah, no, I think that transfer happened on deadline day. So with Tony gone, and the forward they signed injured until like the end of December, basically, Johan Wissa it's his spot, right? And he's a 6 million forward who is like, he's not like the most, I mean, he doesn't blow you away when you watch him in these matches, but it's a really competent team, right? It's like a well coached, well managed team. Like if you had to pick between Mooney's and Vissa, for example, like maybe it's a bad example because Vissa already has a couple goals in the season, but there's just something about like I just feel a little more confident that we're going to get something more out of Vissa, right? Like you look like looking 5-10 weeks ahead.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, Mbomo and Vissa together, they're like a great duo. And they're like just one of those low key fantasy duos where you're like, well, you could kind of get either one depending on your budget and your team set up, and you probably get the share of some spoils from whatever goals that Brentford are going to score.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And Mbomo is a little harder to get because he's 7 million. Maybe Eze turns into Mbomo at some point for some managers, right? Like that's an easy kind of sideways move.
Mm-hmm.
But so those are some things that I've been kicking. I actually don't have Vissa in my squad right now. They have a couple tough fixtures coming up, so I think he works a little better as a later transfer. But I will share with you, Brandon. This is like a first draft of a wild card team, so take it with a big grain of salt. I have not firmed up, what I'm thinking here. I think the goalkeeper spot is kind of the first question for me, and if you were making a goalkeeper transfer this week or you're wild carding, I think that Kepa, I mean, and I'm like firmly in the like, I wish I could just like literally roll out. I would rather take an extra 4 million and just get a 0 every week, right? Like if that were possible. Goalkeepers are so worthless in this game, I feel like. And so it's coming down to Kepa and Dean Henderson for me as my goalkeeper pick. And I don't know, I thought Kepa had a nice performance in his opening match. I mean, obviously they did concede a couple of goals, but I don't know. I feel like he might be. He's a talented keeper. I don't know. I mean,
you're stretching.
Well, listen, you find me a keeper that you actually want right now. I mean, yes, yeah. If you include Allison, then yes. But right, like in the sub Allison bracket, find one that like gets you excited. There's no
sure. Yeah, there's no way to win or lose this conversation. I mean, you're basically going from Flecken to Flecken, and that's fine. On a wild card, you have that luxury. Get whatever Flecken you want.
Yeah.
Bournemouth's fixtures coming up. They're home hosting Chelsea, followed by Liverpool. Then it's a good coupling with Southampton and Leicester, and then the fixtures are diabolical starting in game week 8.
I know.
Arsenal, Villa, City.
It's tricky. It really is. The question is really whether you should even look like. I mean, you want to look in the kind of medium term, I suppose, right?
Yes. Sure.
But like, I think the problem is if you look at it through I actually was thinking about that. I was like, well, which like cheap keeper has already gotten a couple of tricky matches out of the way? And I mean, and unfortunately, that might lead me back to Flecken, which like that would be really depressing if I like wildcarded Flecken out and then wildcard him back in over the next couple of days.
Incredible story. You just wildcarded the same team you had in game week 1.
Just go. Can you imagine if you just went straight back? No, I actually think I might end up with Dean Henderson though. I do feel better about it now that Gahey stayed, right? I think that, and they did make a center back signing as well, and so I think they're okay. I'm still amazed that they let Anderson go. I felt like he was really good for them last season.
Yeah, I don't get it either.
Yeah, good. Has he started yet for Fulham? I should probably know that.
He started in the EFL Cup match, and at that point, I thought he was like a dead certain to like start every other Fulham game from here to eternity, and he did not start over the weekend. It was Diop and Passy again.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I mean, ultimately, he's destined for the starting 11. It's just a matter of when.
Yeah, I feel like you wouldn't. They must have given him some kind of assurance, right? Like he wouldn't leave a starting spot at Palace to be a backup.
He's captaincy material. Like as soon as Kearney gives that up,
FPL captaincy, right? Because you've been captaining Tom Kearney in FPL for the first 3 weeks, and so
you call me Captain Kearney, and that's that. I'll never change. I'll never change. I refuse.
So my back line is keeping Robinson, of course. I think he is absolutely fantastic. And I mean, it just like he's turned into such a like amazing fantasy asset because he's now getting attacking returns consistently enough that even when they concede, he's valuable, right? He's got 2 assists and 2 bonus in the season, and I feel really good about him at 4.5. I think Konsa is another one where it's unfortunate that they conceded to Leicester a little late in that one as well, but I feel good about him too, right? It's just a cheap way into a competent defense. Lewis Dunk, I think, is another one where it's sort of he's 4.5, and again, talk about a kind of like captaincy, captain center back kind of player, right? He's just like a super reliable, solid, can nick a couple of headed goals every season, type option.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a pretty cheap back line. And then I've got Saliba as my one expensive defender. The one question for me is whether there's any short-term value in moving Saliba to Van Dijk for a couple of weeks, possibly moving back to Saliba at some point. But at the moment, my plan is just to roll with Saliba and save my transfer. And then I've gone with Axel Tonzebe as my 4 million defender. I mean, you pick it's like the goalkeeper thing, right? You pick a 4 million guy. They're all terrible. Just don't spend more than 4 million, right?
Yeah, right.
And I don't know, like there are like moments when Brighton seem kind of saucy and fun, and you're like, well, maybe there's like a match where they just everyone gets
Ipswich feels saucy and fun. Totally.
Why do I keep saying Brighton? I got Brighton on the brain.
You're really. I mean, I'm counting 2 Brighton players in this team, so and that's true. That's more Brighton players than you often see. So you're definitely thinking about it.
Yeah. So
our friend James Holland, who came on the Patreon pod, who's been a long time Ipswich season ticket holder fan, he told us he picked Ipswich to, optimistic as he is, to finish 15th in the table. You'd think there's some points that have to be coming for this team sooner or later. I mean, I guess they picked up a point against Fulham, for instance.
Yeah, and Leaf Davis, the Leaf Legend, Brandon. We need some kind of little nickname for him. Leaf Legend, though, picks up. I think he got an assist and 2 bonus in this match, so he is off. And I mean, God, if he was 4 million, he'd be like one of the most owned players in fantasy. But at 4.5, it's just a little too much Ipswich for my blood, Brandon. But at 4 million, let's toss one of their options on the bench. Through the midfield, the big thing here is I have Palmer and Salah. So am I chasing points? I don't know. I mean, I'm probably getting like the second and third best fantasy assets in the game. So I don't really feel like that bad about it. And part of what I like about it is I feel like there's a version of this, like I feel like there's a kind of rotatable, like a rotating third forward that I can use here as well. And so it almost feels like I've got a little too much money in my midfield still. But at the moment I've got Smith Rowe, who I'm holding on to. Maybe I shouldn't be. I mean, I thought he was really kind of just like, I don't know. He was out of it in that Ipswich match. I felt he had a couple chances like right before he got subbed, right? Yeah. Like, and that was kind of.
I think what you're seeing with Smith Rowe is just a young man who has played his entire life at Arsenal at one club.
Yeah.
And as talented as he is, going to a new club across town, it's not easy, especially for the younger players. And he's being a lot is expected of him. Like he's coming now into Fulham, and they expect him to be like the general of that attack. It's going to take time, I think, and I agree. Like he looks a little. He's not there yet. He's not finished.
And so he might turn into Morgan Rogers, which would save me like 0.4, 0.5. That probably is the sensible move, right? I mean, honestly, I could get Onana if I wanted, but I still feel like Rogers is still probably the more sensible pick there. It would also make for a little bit less of a benching headache. I just feel like it's always tricky when you've got basically 8 midfield starters, right? That you want to play, like, or when you've got sort of 3 forwards and 5 midfielders, all of whom are sort of competing, and every single week you're sort of. I don't like having that kind of headache in fantasy, right?
Well, yeah. Let me ask you this about this draft, and we talked a lot about 5th midfielder before game week 1, and I ended up with a 5.5 Brereton Diaz as my 5th mid.
Yeah,
you've thought about this a little bit.
Yeah,
you've gotten off Harry Winks. You now have your 5th attacker would be Semenyo or Smith Rowe at 5.5.
Yeah.
Where are you at with the 4.5 guys? Like Morgan Rogers is as low as you think you can go, given what we've seen so far?
No, I mean, I think so, just because I do think that like you get quite a lot from him at 5. I think he's 5.1 now, right? You get quite a lot from him at 5.1. Is that worth the extra 0.5 million or 0.6 or whatever? It probably is, honestly. And I think what makes it, and so just to quickly go through my midfield right now, I've got Salah, Palmer, Eze, Semenyo, and Smith Rowe. And Semenyo to me is just correcting a mistake. And actually, it was kind of the impetus for the wild. No, I shouldn't say the impetus, but one of the reasons I sort of was convinced
the
that
impetus is, we can call the impetus Mo Salah.
Yeah, Salah. Yeah, that's right. Salah was absolutely 100% the impetus. Even Cole Palmer is like a luxury move that you can do when you're wild carding, right? But what it was, Semenyo not having risen in price even once is kind of shocking, considering that like in every like way that you look at him, I feel like he's been fantastic. Like the underlying stats are good. The actual FPL stats are good. And he looks awesome, right? Like, even if you're just watching highlights of these matches, like Semenyo is heavily involved, right? Like he looks like he's really, even with Solanke out, he's going to take on a lot of, attacking, a lot of the attacking potential. And so
he's just like kind of I think for most managers, a square peg for any problematic round hole that we have. So Joe Pedro is super cheap for the third forward at 5.5.
Yeah.
Morgan Rogers is, as we discussed, probably the cheapest fifth mid you'd want. And Semenyo he's 5.5, right?
Yep.
So it's rare that people are paying enough attention to Bournemouth and have a 5.5 hole that they need to fill.
Unless you're in a situation like this where, I just did it last week. I mean, I got Smith Rowe over Semenyo, but like, but if you're trying to get an expensive, basically if you're trying to fit 3 premiums into your squad, you're going to need to fill it out with some of these cheapies. Right. And I think the problem then is you don't necessarily have players you want to start every single week. Right. And I think that's where, to get back to your question about the more expensive bench option, right? I think that's where the having a more expensive player makes more sense, because you can kind of talk, like you can rotate them a little bit. And so so then my forward line, and this to me is the problem, I suppose, is I mean, is it a problem? I guess you tell me, right? And so the problem is that I have Haaland, obviously. Haaland's not going anywhere, and I just don't care. I don't like any version of my squad that doesn't have him in it. I don't care how many other spots I can upgrade. Okay, like maybe I'm missing.
Who's talking about getting rid of Haaland at this point?
There's a lot of people are like, there's the kind of advanced stats folks are kind of like dropping him in the short term. I don't know, probably not before the Brentford match, but maybe ahead of game week 5. Okay. I don't want to get into it, because my goal this season is not.
I don't want to either.
Yeah. You and I are not going to. No flame wars this year, Brandon. We're firmly on. We're just. This is a friendly world. We're not going to stick our foot in the.
We're the Switzerland of FPL pods this season.
Exactly. We're an island unto ourselves. And so what I have is I have Haaland. I have João Pedro, who I honestly, to me, that's another mistake that I'm correcting. I should have been on him. Actually, I mean, it's, I don't really know. I guess I don't need to kick myself too much, because the player that I got was Chris Wood, and Chris Wood's been excellent. And in all 3 of the matches, including game week 2 where he blanked, he was really good. And I'm sure a lot of people out there have not watched like any Forest so far this season, but he's been great. And, he's in this last match, I think he took 5 shots in the match, scored a goal, had a brace late that got chalked off, played the full 90 minutes. I think there was some risk like earlier about whether he was going to, be kind of rotating a little bit, but he's been, I think he's been absolutely fantastic so far this season. And so my feeling with him now is maybe I just keep him and I just sort of rotate him a little bit, and that he's probably solid enough that you don't necessarily need to move him for one of these kind of other options that have been a little inconsistent. And so the problem, though, is there's no Ollie Watkins in this squad. There's no Isak, right? Like there's a number of players that I can't have, and that's just sort of the price you pay if you're going to have Haaland, Salah, and Palmer, right? That's almost, what is that? I mean, 27, it's almost 40 million of my 60 million budget in 3 players. I mean, it's absolutely insane. right?
Right.
But
The gamble you're making here, which is, I think, why you're making it, is it's one of the better bets you could place.
yeah,
Is you're taking Cole Palmer over a second striker. Basically, you've got
yeah,
two
that's right.
third tier strikers and Cole Palmer.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And also I guess banking that like these 5.5 million guys or whatever, well, I'll just use starting prices here, right? But the 5.5 million guys, Semenyo, Smith Rowe, Pedro, Morgan Rogers, you pick the kind of 3 or 4 different options there, that those players can be good enough, right? That they can sort of get you to like a 6.5 ish option.
Be best, as Ivanka Trump would say.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I
I don't know what that. I have no idea what this reference to. But so that's where I am. And so that was kind of unexpected. I thought I would kind of drop that on you, Brian. You didn't know I was going to reveal a wild
I had
card
no
team.
idea, and then you actually showed us a draft. I mean, I thought you were going to tease it for next week. We got a whole international break to work through, but I guess still you're going to see a whole different draft when you tune into Always Cheating next Monday morning.
Very, very likely, exactly. And and honestly, I will say too, and not to do a second shout out for the Substack, but part of the value of doing this is I have been watching match highlights of everything that I kind of missed over the weekend. And you really do like, you don't have to be ready to Substack do this, but like, if you're like taking fantasy seriously, you should be watching highlights. I mean, you don't have to. I mean, like they always whatever. I'm sure you can watch them in any country you're in, right? But on like NBC and Peacock, they have the extended highlights, and sometimes you look at them and you kind of like this is like 13 and a half minutes. I don't have this much time, but for whatever reason, they decide to spend 4.5 minutes on the lineups at the start of every one of these, and then they show you like the opening minute of the match, right? So all you have to do is you pull up the extended highlight, you skip forward about 3 minutes and 40 seconds, and then you're where you want to be. So you're really watching like a 5-minute highlight package. And I think it is a quick way to be like, oh, wow. Like, Morgan Rogers is one of these players who, like, if you just looked at his returns, you're like, like 3 straight blanks. But, I think especially in those first 2 matches, you saw somebody who was really involved, right? In the Villa. I mean, obviously this is why you brought him in, but like, had a game week 3, but, you see things that you don't necessarily see if you're just looking, if you're just watching the featured matches and then looking at FPL results, right? Or FPL points.
Well, I'll be jealous of you having Mo Salah going into game week 4. My current plan is I have to roll unless I want to take a hit to get Mo, which I don't think I do. I think ultimately what I need is 2 free transfers to get Gordon and Jota out and Salah for a 5th mid. Any
chance that you would wildcard yourself? Have I talked you into it a little bit? Have I planted a seed?
I mean, I don't look at my team and say I see problems when I look at my team, but no, I'm not feeling the stress that you clearly are. And you're not necessarily feeling the stress. I understand you're kind of like, you just feel like this is the best strategy for you. And I get that.
Yeah, I guess what I would say is I'm feeling very engaged with the game right now. Like I feel like I'm feeling good about like my ability to kind of make confident decisions, right? And just sort of like trust my instincts a little bit. And so that was what kind of has pushed me to do it, right? Just this feeling like, let's go for it. Let's try.
Clearly a lot of our listeners are kind of thinking either wild card or the price market is kind of like in full swing right now and going into the international break. Usually there's a lot of action at the start of the international break, especially the first one, when people are like fine-tuning their team. And then the market should probably slow down in a few days and you can kind of chill out and take a step back for the middle part of the international break. But a couple questions here. One from Stephen Curtis, who has thoughts on early transfers to navigate price rises, price falls earlier in the season and during international breaks. And John Reynolds has said, nobody ever. Should I use all 3 of my free transfers during this break? So I think from your perspective, Josh, you are seeing these price changes and are thinking that's going to be something you're going to feel the effects of later in the season. Yeah. So,
and you agree with this, right? I mean, I think of you as somebody who's very like conscious of price changes and sort of like the market.
Yeah, and I think it's fun to take advantage of it. At this point, João Pedro is a great example of this, where you're going to make money off of this guy over the break.
Yeah.
And you don't have to bring in these players thinking I'm a 100% believer in João Pedro.
Yeah.
You could actually turn just being a 2 to 3 week believer in João Pedro is going to mean you can make a better financial decision with your team later on in the season, and especially when you're looking at that late season wild card, the more money you have, the better. Yeah. So I am for like playing the price market earlier in the season. The trick with early transfers in the international break is Lord knows what's going to happen to these guys when they go off to their international teams. I think I'm like more compelled to go for guys in the FPL transfer market who maybe don't have an international call up.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I think
they're not traveling and all that sort of thing.
I guess, and it's kind of like situational too, right? Like I feel like if you have like a decent bench, like if your bench is decimated, right, and like if one more player gets injured, then you are absolutely going to have to and you use your transfer early, and like your team is basically 11 strong, right? And like one injury is going to kill you, then maybe don't use the transfer early. But if you have like a little bit of bench depth, then I think it's fine to go ahead and do it. I mean, I don't know. I don't think we get that many. We don't get as many international break injuries as we kind of think we do, right? I
certainly
feel like,
do.
Yeah. It's a little bit like holiday rotation, right? This idea that like you've got to go 15 deep in your squad for the holidays, right? Because there's so much rotation during December, and then you look and you're like everybody played every match, right. It's like maybe Pep, like outside of like Man City though, you're probably pretty safe.
Well, I feel like we've already given a pretty good gift to our listeners there with the wild card talk, but we do have a bonanza coming up after kind of a short sort of housekeeping break here, where we're going to go through all 20 clubs and just give what we're going to call, Josh, common sense.
That's right.
Takes.
Yeah.
And I like this.
We're sensible people.
Do we have Thomas Paine on the line? Can we get him?
We do. We do have Thomas Paine on the line. A great revolutionary will be joining us on the pod.
But before we do that, just a quick shout out. If you like what you hear, you want to say thanks to me and Josh and get more FPL content in return, become a Patreon supporter. Just go to patreon.com/alwayscheating. You get an extra ad-free podcast each week, and that second one comes right up against the game week deadline for the latest information, and we put all of our main pod episodes into that ad-free feed for you as well. We get game week write-ups from mini league mates, tons of special mini leagues in our Discord to join, which includes prize giveaways, kit giveaways, and that Discord is bumping. Our friend Francis is really going with the community team, something we need to talk a little bit more on those Patreon episodes. And big thanks this week to our new and upgraded patrons, Bram Berger, Casey FC Ryback, Andrew Rupert, and Lucas. Thank you guys all for the support. Again, it's patreon.com/alwayscheating.
That's right. And one quick shout out here too, Brendan. I didn't get a chance to do this earlier, but I was in Portland last week for some family stuff. And thanks again to Pat for filling in. But while I was there, I took in a Portland Timbers match, Brandon. And so I wanted to just quickly
a new scarf to add to the collection.
Yeah, the Portland. This is they have an entire store, like a storefront building next to the stadium where you
love your stores.
Yeah, I do, but it's not a club store; it's a supporters store, and so all the stuff in there is not officially licensed merch; it's all supporter funded, and the store itself is a supporter funded concern as well. So, I could not have had a better time at this Portland Timbers game. Anyone who is in the Pacific Northwest, you have to go watch a game there. It was such an incredible experience. I'd heard it was good, Brandon. Sometimes you hear like, oh, you got to go see it's like Yankee Stadium. You got to go see a game at Yankee Stadium. Then you go to Yankee Stadium, you're like, this kind of sucks, It's like, but this is an example of it does. I mean, I love Citi Field. Like that's a fun play, where that's where the Mets play. But Yankee Stadium is an overrated experience.
It does. Yeah. It does stink. What is not overrated is Fantasy Football Hub. If you're looking for a one-stop shop for your fantasy needs, you want to get stats, you want to get a little sort of like plug your team ID into an AI and get a quick read on what you're doing right, what we're doing wrong. If you want to see real human experts in action, team reveals from some of the best FPL managers in the game. Great advice, game week to game week. Ben Krellen, the spreadsheet
BC.
goat. He's got his planner up there for you to access. And I love the player comparison tool on the hub as well. So as a listener of Always Cheating, you can get 50% off of a membership for this season. Just go month to month, get a whole season, whatever you feel comfortable doing. But at any tier, you get 50% off. Just go to fantasyfootballhub.co.uk/always. Thank you to Fantasy Football Hub. We're really enjoying using you guys this season. Super League code, free to join, open to all of our listeners, QVC0ND. Go to alwayscheating.com to get that. Just click the button right at the top of the website. And the last piece of housekeeping, our friends at the Blue Wire Network are giving away a couple of $500 gift cards. This is that's some real money I could do something with. I could buy a lot at the Portland Timber Supporter Store with the $500 gift card.
Yeah, you could have bought the flight. Brendan, you are coming back to New York in October.
Yes.
By the way, we should do some kind of listener meetup when you're in town.
Totally. Yes. That's going to be the weekend of October 18th. So we'll definitely plan a match watching party that Saturday or Sunday, most likely Saturday. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, link in the show notes for this survey from Blue Wire. And just looking for some quick feedback from our audience, for our ad partners. It's a big help to us too. Check out the description and the link for your chance to get those $500 gift cards. All right, Josh. Now it is time to do our common sense fantasy takes. I think you expressing this through your wild card are saying 3 weeks is kind of this, we're at this pivot point where now we've got like critical mass with data information, grass test, data test. We now have real sort of like takes to get us to the next step in the season.
Yeah. And I think the real goal here is to do what I think, I think especially because we have 2 weeks, right, to sort of do some thinking ahead of game week 4. And so it's a chance for us to basically like take a step back. And sometimes, again, I talk about like the forest from the trees, and I think I really got caught up in this kind of thinking last season, which was I was really letting other people take the temperature of the season, right? And like when it came to transfers or when to wildcard, do all this kind of stuff, I was relying way too much on what other people were saying, right? And it was because I felt like I didn't have my own kind of rules of thumb about each squad, right? Heuristics, if you will, Brandon. If I didn't have these 20 heuristics that we're about to, that'd be a great name. That'd make sure that no one listened to this episode.
It's a great keyword. Just became a great title for a podcast episode.
Yeah. So basically, and again, we're like 50 minutes in already, but we're going to do, basically these are going to be like one kind of lightning round, big picture thought for all 20 clubs. Okay. So, just kind of like quick thought. And obviously this, we're going to keep this fantasy focused, right? But just kind of one, the lightning round is on. So let's get going here. Let me just get a sip from I have a rare that I pod with a coupe glass, Brandon.
We have a comment in the chat from our friend Pat, who was on the pod last week. It says, you're sipping on a fancy glass. You can check us out on screen on our YouTube page. But yeah, what you get? So what you got?
My wife turned in the final draft of her book to her publisher, and so
congrats.
You played a tiny part in that as well, Brandon. You get
I've got my fingers in everything, don't I?
Fingers in that. Not in getting it published, but just in the actual design.
Sure.
So
we're just supporting the real talented people in our lives.
Yeah,
that's what we do.
We're celebrating tonight. So
that's amazing. All right, so
that's why I'm extra spicy this evening. So let's go into it. I think I think the more interesting way to do this, maybe I was going back and forth. I was like, should it be alphabetical? Should it be table order? And I've decided that table order is the way to go, because ultimately the teams at the top of the table are the ones that fantasy managers tend to be more focused on. And so I think it makes sense to start there. And so we're really just going to go 1 through 20 and talk about these clubs. And then, and again, we're going to keep it fantasy focused. And then next week we'll do more of a proper game week 4 preview, but there's really no point in doing that ahead of a whole week of international travel and fixtures and things like that. Right. Cause there'll be some breaking news. I mean, half the league might move to Fenerbahce, Brandon, in the next handful of days, right?
Could
so we
happen.
we just don't know. By the way, I saw a picture of Jadon Sancho on the pitch on Sunday, and I was like, I somehow just completely missed that he moved. I knew there was like rumors about him moving, but him moving to Chelsea. I mean, I actually started laughing when I saw it because I was like, "What is he? He's like the ninth." Well, like I don't know, whatever. I guess we don't need to get into that, do we? That could be our early Chelsea
Yeah,
club,
that's a hard pass. Too much oxygen has been devoted to the Chelsea.
You're
trench.
right. You're right.
What I think is actually interesting about it is Manchester United kind of came up with nothing. Because for a while there was going to be a swap with Raheem Sterling. Raheem Sterling ends up at Arsenal, and Manchester United are like, here's who did they get? They didn't get anybody. They're still playing Marcus Rashford, so that's very fun for them.
Yeah. Maybe Mason Mount's injured now too, right? So it's like, So, all right. So let's start at the top of the table here. Here's my first thought on Man. Maybe we'll go like back and forth. How about that? I do one. You do. Okay.
Good.
Yeah.
Great.
And then if you have an extra, if either of us have an extra thought, we can add it. But
sure.
my first thought on Man City to kick things off here, and first overall at the moment, tied with Liverpool on 9 points. I suppose they're ahead. Yeah, they're ahead on goal difference. Actually, they're tied on goal difference, but they've scored 2 more goals. My first thought on Man City is that the defense probably needs to be reevaluated. And like we probably, basically my thought is that we shouldn't be drawing any real conclusions about their defense at the moment because Rodri has, they just haven't had Rodri for the first 3 weeks. And he is, though not a defender himself, is incredibly important to the defense. And not only is he not there to protect the defense, but I also wonder if it has forced them to play Gvardiol as a center back, right? Like I wonder if Pep has not had the confidence to like let him push forward more, right? As a result of not having Rodri in the center, because I feel like we saw a more kind of attacking left wing version of him in the past, and he's been pretty pinned, I feel like, to the back line.
Yeah, that is interesting. I feel like Guardiola, it's just more of. I think it's less about the formation and the tactics and more Gvardiol might just be a slow starter. We saw this with him at the start of last season, and City just seemed to find that that destruction rhythm sort of midway through. They're a one-man fantasy team right now.
They really
that's
are.
kind of the pleasure of it.
And maybe when Foden is, I don't know. Yeah, but at the moment, you're right. It's a one-man team, and so there's not like the problem is that there's no value anywhere else, right? It's not like there's a 4.5 million defender in there. I mean, actually there is Enrico Lewis, but I don't necessarily trust him with Rodri coming back, right, to be a consistent starter.
Right, because Rico Lewis's great, cool fantasy value is that inverted fullback thing that he does. And now Walker finally got on the pitch in game week 3. So, that's just like a firm wait and see.
Yeah.
So for Liverpool, then, it's kind of like, I think the common sense take here is it's the complete opposite of Manchester City, and that Liverpool are the Manchester City of this season as far as fantasy, where you're like, how am I going to fit all of the guys who I want into my team? And you would want,
that's another wild card
defender
for me. Yeah,
you want a midfielder. I mean, they don't really have any forwards, so you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
But what's fascinating about this new season with Liverpool is I think I was able to talk myself into not having Mo Salah in game week 1 because I thought Arne Slot's coming in. Who knows what the level of discontent or discombobulation is going to be. Yeah. And what we have seen is, whether it's to do with Slot or whether it is just these players being veteran winners, is this Liverpool team looks like they kind of want to send this version of Liverpool off into the sunset on a real high. Yeah. From Van Dijk to Salah and everyone in between. They're just like in some incredible form. Yeah. And I think we're going to be dealing with Liverpool assets all season for the good. So get as many Liverpool assets as you can pronto.
Yeah, and that's the other issue with my wild card is I only have one at the moment in Salah. Mm-hmm. It's hard to get even more than one in if you're going to go really expensive. I mean, it may be that Cole Palmer just can't fit. I mean, that's the only that, if I did that, I could still have Jota and Trent. Like, that's interesting. Does like a 4.5 million defender and Cole Palmer, is that worse than Jota and Trent? Like, it's actually a really interesting question. Like,
Well,
it's
I mean,
close. Yeah.
spoiler alert for whatever we're going to say about Chelsea, but I do think that it's overstated with Cole Palmer right now. I do not think that he is necessary for a fantasy team that's doubled with Salah and Haaland.
Okay.
I think he's and it's like I have nothing bad to say about the player and the
No,
fantasy asset. It's the price.
Yeah.
The price is illogical if you're going for Haaland plus Salah, and I see really no way around that. And that might be me just playing as a template manager, but I just think it's true. It's facts.
No, I think it's true. I think the part of my thinking there was I could kind of maybe do a little back and forth with him and Saka, right? Like, following the fixtures a little
Ooh, this
bit.
feels like I don't think I've ever heard you talk about swap in, swap
hokey
out.
pokey. I think we always, you and I don't like to say it because it's hokey pokey in America.
Yeah.
It's hokey cokey in the UK.
We're very aggressive and we're very finger pointing centric here in the US. We poke people.
Yeah,
hokey poke.
Exactly. We hoke and we poke. We also hoke people. We do both. Really, yeah. So yeah, I think it's you might be on again. This is actually exactly why this exercise is useful, right? Because when you look at it in a big picture sense, you're like, yes. What do I think about Liverpool? What I think about them is that I want 3 of their assets, right? And so that's very interesting. So that's something for me to think about a little bit. That would also enable me to maybe get Ollie Watkins or, dare I say, Nico Jackson? But let's put a button in that for a second. Let's go on to Brighton and Hove Albion, Brandon. There's a lot to say here, obviously. We talked about Pedro already. I think Minta is an interesting, talk about another 5.5 million player. I think he's playing super well. He's the right winger for Brighton, and finally picked up an assist. I guess it was one of those like rebound assists, but he honestly could have scored on the chance, right? And so
he was well in.
Yeah, and so I think the Minta is a really good. You mean, like, I'm not like first name on the wild card level, right? But I just think he's like, I think he looks really good. I think the whole team, I just admire Brighton so much. Like, I admire like everything, like the way that they do business while still staying competitive is super impressive to me. Like, they're like, they should be like the envy of every like kind of non top 6 club. Right?
And they make hiring new managers look easier than like most other teams in Europe. Herzler is like hit the ground running. He looks great. He looks confident. The team looks great. And I'm with you on Minta. Minta is basically like Mitoma on the right-hand side, but for cheaper. So I think that's a great budget call.
Yeah. Well, I think Mitoma be 6'5" or 7 and Minta's 5'5". So not as like polished maybe as
yes, correct. Mitoma. Yes, I would agree with that. Yeah. Mitoma, our price rose up to 6.6.
Okay.
So there's a 1.1 savings there.
A big difference then. Huge, actually, really. All right, so we're on to Arsenal now.
Arsenal. The take here is the take is it kind of changes week to week. After game week 1, I thought the only player anybody needed in their squads was Kai Havertz. After game week 2, I thought the only player anybody needed in their squad was Bukayo Saka. After game week, or Raya for that matter. Arsenal are similar. So like I was saying with Liverpool, get them all. Arsenal is kind of like pray that you're lucky week to week that you have the guy who gets the points. And that goes for their defenders as well. Is Gabriel finally going to get his corner kick goal this match? Who knows? So Arsenal, I think, have presented decent enough value, but they appear like they're going to be a frustrating team to buy into fantasy-wise because you can always justify having them, and they might not pay you back the way these like surefire bets from Liverpool and Erling Haaland might.
What do you think about Saka? I mean, like 3 returns in 3, but it's like it's like he just feels like such a step below Palmer, Salah, and Haaland as like the kind of like it's like a premium asset.
I disagree in that I think Saka will outscore Palmer this season.
Wow.
I think he's a better pick than Palmer.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm excited to get to our Palmer section then. I want to see what you have to say there. But let's move on to
but
Sure.
real quick on Saka. I don't totally disagree with you on the sort of skepticism there, because the question remains: Saka's ceiling is really, it's fuzzy. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
So that's really the red flag for him.
Exactly, because he's super consistent, and obviously it's hugely valuable. But it's like, if you look at like a Luis Diaz, and I know a small sample, et cetera, et cetera. We always have to say that, but like, if you look at like what Diaz or Jota have done in the first like 3 weeks, for example, right? It's like they're not necessarily as consistent, but they are, like, because they're a little more explosive in terms of their returns, it kind of averages out to the same, right? Especially when you factor in the 3 million price difference between them, right? So I don't know. There's something to think about there. All right, let's move on to Newcastle. My thought on Newcastle is I'm kind of impressed that they're in fifth. Like, it feels like they shouldn't. Like, they've had 3 pretty underwhelming performances to start the season. They locked into a win versus Spurs.
They were under the cosh by Spurs for a good deal of that match, but I guess I do tip my hat to Newcastle for grinding out. That's how you kind of have to do it some weeks.
Yep.
I feel maybe a little bit more optimistic, like there are like green shoots for Newcastle, and I think we will see much better from them. Maybe the international break will be rejuvenating. Just out of curiosity, look at Newcastle's fixtures coming up. It's Wolves away in game week 4, followed by Fulham, City, Everton, Brighton. It's not like a great run, be honest.
Mixed bag.
Yeah. So I think I'll be ready to get rid of Gordon for sure going into game week 5.
Yeah.
And that will hopefully work into my Salah move.
Yeah, that makes sense. So yeah, not a lot. Maybe it's just we don't have a lot positive to say because we started out the season really. I started the season with 2 Newcastle. I wanted to have 3, and I had to move out of Gordon at the last minute
because I almost did Nick Pope.
Exactly. So it's like they're sort of putting together some kind of I don't know. They just it has not been inspired, but like you said, maybe the fact they haven't played inspired and they're still 7 from 9 is says something. All right, so with that, we move now to Brentford.
Yeah, this one's pretty easy. It's exactly what we said at the top of the show. Ivan Toney is officially out of the mix. Therefore, you are free to get Mbomo and Vissa. And that's really all you need to know.
Yeah, I think
their fixtures are bad coming up, so this is something you can sort of put a pin in and come back to. But that's the real deal. That's the news.
But they do get better, right? Because I was looking earlier, and they are I think it's, and by the way, Mbomo is now up to 5th overall in points for midfielders. Like he is really doing quite well, and we probably have to start taking him more seriously as a buy. But yeah, once you get past City away, Spurs away in 4 and 5, it's a really nice run. They have 3 home fixtures in 4. One of those home fixtures is Ipswich at home, Fulham, Bournemouth, Everton, Leicester. Especially if you're targeting on those like Vissa, right? It's a really nice run, and I think that could be really interesting. So, all right, so let's move on to Aston Villa. I mean, we did talk about, we talked about Onana and Rodgers a fair amount already, so we've kind of already done our Villa section.
What do you think about the defense on Villa? Because that's, Emery, his calling card has been defense typically.
Yeah, so what? It's four goals conceded. You should be able to freeze the top of the table here, like you kind of like an Excel, so that I could see. But what is it? 4 goals for, 4 goals against then for them. Yeah, I mean, I just don't see it as a problem long term, right? The personnel hasn't changed really. I mean, they have lost Douglas Luiz, but I just really have a lot of respect for Emery as a manager, right? I just think he's gonna sorted out. I mean, they still have Emi Martinez, and so I think it's just kind of fluky, right? Like they absolutely could have kept a clean sheet in that Leicester game, right? It was like Leicester basically had one chance, and that was the one they scored on, and so
just happened to fall to the GOAT.
Exactly. Yeah. So
okay. Yeah. So I think the frustrating thing for Villa is they just haven't really become as fantasy relevant as we expected them to be. Yeah. And by the time they might be ready, then Champions League will begin. Totally. And there'll be the added layer of anxiety of what's Watkins' minutes. Is he still going to be a 65-minute sub?
Yep, exactly.
It's hard to say.
And so with Duran playing so well, right? I think that's it complicates things because you don't need Watkins to play the full 90 every match.
You have seen a good amount of squad depth at Villa at the start of this season, so that's at least encouraging in terms of how maybe Emery won't have to rotate the starting 11 so much. It's just that he's just going to have to limit guys' minutes match to match. All right, Bournemouth in 8th position. They've got 2 draws and a win. They've had to grit them out. That draw against Forest was a last-minute Semenyo goal, and then an annihilation of a complete supporter group in Everton this weekend. Just like thoughts and prayers go out to them and to Sean Dyche's team. But
does he make it through the international break? Like, it's risky.
It's a little bit like Manchester United in that, like, where do you start with all of the problems at this club? Like new owners, that's not gonna, that might be a start, but it's a long-term thing. New manager, I don't know. The squad just doesn't seem very good. Anyway, we're talking about Bournemouth, and it's the opposite. I think Bournemouth kind of, they're under the radar right now. Lest you forget, they have a fantastic manager and weirdly a squad that's more cohesive, dare I say, better than you think. Yep. I guess the FPL takeaway is what your wild card showed, and Semenyo is a legitimately good fantasy pick. Expect more returns from Bournemouth as we go.
Yeah, they're sort of, I mean, I know I talked about like Brighton being the kind of envy of the mid-table or whatever you want to call it. I don't mean that in a derogatory way, but like it's almost like Bournemouth are like the envy of like the teams that should be in the bottom five. It's like they don't have like a huge budget. It's like there's really like not like they're just sort of, but it's like almost impossible to imagine them going down this season, right? Like there's just something about the quality of their, like they have a good coach. It's like there's enough kind of competent players in that squad, and it's sort of it's impressive. Like this has nothing to do with fantasy really, but like they're just I like they're like a fun team to watch, I think too. Like I've enjoyed watching them.
Bournemouth, if you're watching or listening, we admire you. All right.
We admire you. Yeah.
I'm glad this one fell in your lap, Nottingham Forest.
Yeah, I mean, Chris Wood, I think he's been I've talked a lot about Chris Wood so far. Have you, I don't know how much Forest you've seen at all, but like do you have any thoughts on Chris Wood?
I've never primary screened Forest this season. Second screen or goal rush, sort of the situation. I'm impressed that Wood has he's generated the fantasy points that he has. Yeah, the consistency. Yeah. So that's great. Yeah. I have no quarrel with him. No, it's great. I think the question is, when's the right time to get off of Chris Wood? It's sort of like you've already given you the gift. Yeah. Now you go to a party. And you don't want to outstay your welcome.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think that he is, but there's something to be said, whether I keep him on my wild card or not, there's something to be said for basically like a forward who can return in bad fixtures. That is not a guarantee. Like we've seen many, many times over the years, forwards, like we're like, oh, they have a great run of fixtures. Like he's cheap. Like surely he'll get something in those matches, right? But Chris Wood is one of those players who he's not like when they play a really good squad, he's not going to get a ton. Like he might not even get a single shot, right? But when they play a bad squad, he's going to get a handful of shots. He's probably going to score, right? Because he's like a pretty accurate shot taker. And I think he took 5 shots. I mean, so he's really. And the goal he scored was actually pretty. It was like the edge. Like it was actually a pretty bad goal for who are they playing to concede. But it was. But anyway, yeah. So I think that he's. I'm impressed. I think Morgan Gibbs Rogers has had been off to a nice start.
Morgan Gibbs White.
Excuse me. It's
Yeah, they were playing. They were playing Wolves. Wolves is we don't have to talk about them for a few more teams.
Yeah.
Spurs is kind of interesting to see Spurs at this point of the table
10th,
where you think that maybe they were going to get off to a better start. 1-1-1, 4 points, and their attack just hasn't really gotten off the ground apart from the explosion that they had in game week 2. And they fell back to earth against Newcastle. And you saw those same issues that you saw last season with Ange's system, where when it kind of starts grinding to a halt, it really does. And they can't keep a clean sheet. So I just the common sense FPL take here is, all that said, Pedro Porro is the fantasy option. And then it becomes do you view Pedro Porro as a season keeper? And if you do, then I think he's just a very logical guy to get whenever it is that is convenient to you. If you want to spend more transfers in your defense, then I think Pedro Porro, you don't necessarily, he doesn't feel like he's compulsory. You don't need him.
It'd be nice to have him. But
he took so many freaking shots.
I think he took
against
6.
Newcastle.
I think he took 6 shots against Newcastle. It's
so
insane.
If he's taking that many shots, it's clear that Ange has said to him, put his arm around him and said, "Go for it, my man." And he owns that sort of space at the corner of the 18-yard box. He's constantly getting the ball there, and he has a great cross. And he has the ability to shoot, obviously. So I love any fullback that is that attacking. So that's I think that to me is even a bigger takeaway than what we thought we would be talking about. Son, Solanke, Madison, etc. There's really nothing more to say there.
Yeah, I mean, and maybe we'll see a better version of their attack when Solanke is healthy. Most likely we will, but when will that be? I don't know. I mean, they have the North London Derby in game week 4, which is going to be really tough, obviously. Should be an interesting match. Very fun. But and with no Declan Rice, too. So, I don't think
they do have their new signing, the Spanish guy, who is just like...
he got injured, too, didn't he? I think he's like immediately injured. So
just who's the guy who came to Arsenal under Wenger with a broken back?
Kim Kallstrom. Exactly. He's been Kallstromed already. He'll be like a new signing when he joins in November, though, Brandon.
Okay, take us to Chelsea.
Well, I'm going to trade. I'll trade Chelsea and Fulham. Okay, even though Fulham's your club, you tell me. I want to hear your Cole Palmer is wildly inessential rant.
Oh, okay. Well,
yeah.
I think that Wolves match where Palmer got 3 assists and a goal really inflated our view. And it inflated our view of him in many ways. It was a great reminder of how incredible a fantasy asset he was last season. Of course, does that mean that I'm trying to force this argument that he's not as good a fantasy asset as everyone seems to think he is, despite him continuing to accrue fantasy points? But he did all the dirty work against Wolves. He got 1 assist and a yellow card in the match this weekend, and he blanked in the first week. And everything that we have and everyone has been saying about Chelsea remains true about this club is just in a real moment right now. And of course, they're going to be having an identity crisis. And I don't think, even though Maresca's style of football is very attacking, I don't think it's enough to bring Chelsea out of that identity crisis. So I think I feel better saying this today, and I've got 2 weeks to not have to eat my words. I feel better swerving and fading Palmer and taking and getting picks elsewhere. With that money I would have spent on him than to have him, because I do think the Wolves match just inflated our sense.
A great hot chip song just turned into a great way to manage your fantasy team. All right, I think that's fair. And now I will now take Fulham because we did our trade here. Trash team, trash stadium, trash fans. No, I'm just kidding. No,
wow.
I think just joking. My takeaway is that I don't know, just that Anthony Robinson is Jedi is probably the best fantasy. Okay, actually, no, I have, because we talked about him already. My other take is that I am maybe slightly I cannot believe I'm saying this, slightly interested in Adama Traore as a fantasy asset. I never thought I would be there, Brandon. That's a place.
Tell me why. Tell me why.
Just because he's everywhere.
Because he scored a goal?
No, because he's just getting in the box. He's been super aggressive. Like you know, he's sort of, I don't know what his heat map looks like, but it feels like he's just like he has a lot of the ball, and he's like clearly they have decided like giving him the space to run with the ball is like something that's going to help them. I actually am not certain it has helped them so far this season, but he's a strange
player to be. You rarely ever saw him even at Wolves like start on the pitch. He was always an impact sub, and I thought that was going to be his role. But clearly, Marco Silva has said we are a more dynamic team with him, and this is our best starting 11. He's like consistently starting, and he's good going forward. Is he good at much else? It's really difficult to say. But yeah, as like Smith Rowe or all these guys are going to be consistent from Smith Rowe to Iwobi to Adama Traore. So I would say if you hold your nose looking at Iwobi, you should probably hold your nose with Traore as well.
I think that's fair. I actually don't think I could actually bring myself to have Traore.
He's fun to talk about.
He's fun to talk about. He's fun to watch. He's just a fascinating player in general. By the way, going through this table, I'm like, I didn't know where anybody was basically outside of the top four. So this is fascinating. So all right, so we're at club number 13, which is West Ham United. Gosh, I really am struggling to come up with a take for West Ham. I suppose Jared Bowen is this season's version of the good fantasy player that is like too expensive he's like on the wrong team and he costs too much. Like it's like he's actually playing pretty well, right? He's got, let's see what he's got so far. He's got I guess it's just a goal and an assist, although he's had a couple pretty tough fixtures with Villa and Man City, but he's like, but I just at 7.5, there's like 25 players in that price range and cheaper who I want more than him, right? So I
feel like it could go two ways with West Ham. Halfway through the season, we could be like, it's all gone wrong. These transfers they made, the new managerial appointment was terrible. Or it could be like, wow, they actually did it. They had a great summer. And it could genuinely still go either way, it feels like.
I still could see myself getting Souček possibly on my wild card.
Hey, what an absolute legend that guy is. Each of the three matches to start the season, same old Souček. He didn't even start the match this weekend, and he still comes on, and you're just like, anytime you flip on the West Ham match, he's getting a chance.
Everywhere. It's ridiculous. All right, let's move on to Brendan. You're next here with
Manchester United.
Manchester United in 14th. Geez, lower than I realized.
Well, I feel vindicated in my like complete just like dismay that all these pundits were picking Manchester United to finish even close to the top four. The song remains the same. Ten Hag is a terrible coach, a terrible leader of men, and their midfield is. Mainu cannot, a young, inexperienced Mainu cannot save this Manchester United midfield. They're going to struggle all season.
It's a really, it's like, and maybe Mainu, Garnacho, like maybe these guys have like another level they can reach out to. They're like a baseball team that has like a bunch of good players but no all-stars, like outside of Bruno, obviously, and it's like it's really hard to like. To make the playoffs or win the World Series when everyone's pretty good, no one's amazing, and it's like, is Zirkzee going to be that guy? I don't know. It's like, it feels like in all of these spots, it's like, there's no kind of like, there's no one who's making like a best 11 of the top 6 or whatever. Right. So it's
I just wonder if it's like, and United fans will hate to hear it, but it may be that there were good transfers this summer, but you don't have a smart enough person to put them in the right spots and move them around the correct way around
Well,
Field. I wonder if a new managerial appointment halfway around or halfway through the season helps this team.
I mean, if they stay 14th for much longer, it's not going to be halfway through the season, right? It'll happen like this fall, this autumn. So, I'm with you.
Well, Pochettino's ours.
I know.
USA,
we get to see his first. We get to see his first couple matches. I'm kind of excited about that.
Well, you see, I don't think he's going to be managing the U.S. this break. I don't think they've actually signed the contract.
Is that right?
I think we're still in terms agreed.
Really? I'm surprised they didn't get it. What? He make sure he's got like all the blue M&Ms in his,
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. Let's take care of that before this weekend. We got to like the World Cup's coming up. All right. Well, let's move on to our final handful of clubs here. Leicester City. I've got a positive takeaway here, which is that they might just have enough like Premier League pedigree, like kicking through that squad to stay up this season. Like I mean, it depends on whether they get an actual like let's leave points penalties out of the equation for the moment, right? Because that might come, but like there's just like a handful of dudes it's like I don't know. I just feel like if you compare like the three promoted teams, and Ipswich have had a few moments, but like it just feels like Leicester's kind of like I don't know. It's like there's enough quality dudes in that squad that I think they can survive. I don't know. Like, what do you think?
I think that I am so biased against Steve Cooper.
Why are you? I like Steve Cooper. Like, I think he's actually pretty good.
He's so corny, and every like post-match interview is just platitude after.
I think
platitude.
You're being Lookist. I think if he looked like
no, you're the one who whose mind
who's that
goes
guy you
to
like?
that.
Who's that guy you like from Twister? If you look like Glenn
Powell,
if you look like Glenn Powell, I'm saying this stuff, you'd be all over.
You're the one whose mind goes to that. But I don't know. I mean, they have 1 point. Luton Town was raising people's eyebrows at this point. I mean, Luton Town almost survived. In all honesty,
if we keep it fantasy focused, then I mean, how about just Jamie Vardy? Right, like he might be enough for them. I didn't think he was going to be anything, and I mean, I'm still not like looking to buy him or anything like that. By the way, when did they sign? I totally missed that they brought in Edouard. Did you notice that Edouard signed for Leicester? I kind of missed that.
Yeah, Edouard and Jordan Ayew. So they got a couple of Crystal Palace signees. Bobby Decker-Dover-Reed is in there. Yeah. So they're
maybe next week's pod we can do a transfer roundup.
Somewhat desperate transfers there. I mean, Wout Faes, I think, is the best fantasy option on this team right now. He's already jumped up to 4.1 based on the set piece goal that he scored. But still, he might just be unsexy as he is as a center back. Yeah, the 4.0 defender.
This is James Justin erasure. He used to be Mr. James Justin.
What is he priced at, James Justin? Is he 4.0 as well?
4.5, sadly.
Yeah,
but,
he's properly rated.
Yeah,
he's properly rated.
All right, let's move on to Crystal Palace. Brandon.
Crystal Palace,
16th place, lower than I expected.
So is Eze too expensive? So he has been, as noted, unlucky. He probably should have at least one more goal than he does, and he's come close a number of times. This finish was really elegant this weekend. But is he, like what you were saying about Jared Bowen, is the allure of Eze actually an oasis in a desert? A mirage. Is the oasis actually a mirage with Eze? And that's my concern with him, is you're just paying too much for a guy who's not on a good enough team, who sold some very good, sturdy parts over the summer.
I mean, you're not paying that much, really. I mean, you're paying 6.9 million now. Like, it's not crazy given how good he is, right? Like, I mean, he's taking shots. He's taking a lot of shots and creating a lot of chances. That does typically translate into FPL results on a long enough time horizon, right? And so I still think there's something there. But it has been obviously a hugely frustrating start. Yeah, I mean, I guess he got a goal and 3 bonus in the third game week. So like, I guess we need to stop thinking about him as like a flop, right? Like he's done as well as.
He's in Isak territory where he's been frustrating to own, but it's not been a complete disaster.
Yep.
And then, you come back to that question of what kind of results are Palace writ large going to get this season?
Yeah.
All right. Ipswich, Josh.
Ipswich. Like Leif Davis, like that they have some 4 million options that we could look at long term. I am not really buying the hype with Delap. Like, I know he scored in game week 3. He actually was it in the Liverpool match where he had a pretty big chance in the first half too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But he's just 5.5 million, and I just don't know that I would be willing to spend more than 4.5 million on any Ipswich players. No disrespect to their supporters, but like, it's just like, it feels like they're going to be struggling all year, and I just don't really want to have anybody from a club like that.
Yeah, I do love Greaves as their center back, and again our buddy James Haaland backed us up there, where Greaves looks like he's locked that spot down, and he looks really strong on set pieces.
I'm moving Tuanzebe to Greaves as we speak. Then
well done, sir. All right, that brings us to Wolves, and Wolves are in kind of you're not necessarily in a desperate position ever this early in the season, but nothing has really gone their way, and Gary O'Neill will be very frustrated. They have so many, to go back to your baseball metaphor, they have so many great, players who have the tools, but it's just not coming together, and then you get no fantasy output because of that. I think what we have to be looking out for is, will Wolves' form coincide with the good run of fixtures, and we can actually consider some of these relatively decently priced midfielders and forwards, from like Wang Hee-chan to Cunha and Gomez and all of those guys.
Yeah.
But
there is some, it's like there's like some meat on that bone with this team, right? But not yet.
But not yet. All right, Southampton. Tell me how good the Brereton Diaz pick was.
No, I'm going to let you slide on that one. I gave it to you on on our deadline day pod, and that felt like enough. There is, okay, here's my real take, and I'm sorry in advance, but there is nothing to like in this team. I can't remember the last time there was a Premier League team that fielded a full 11, had players, and I can't find anything to like. Like, we go to Everton, who's in 20th in a second. I can think of plenty of things, right? Like, there's like 8 players on that team that I would consider, if like with a new manager and a good run of form, right? It's like, but like with Southampton, there's like nothing, right? There's just
what about Ramsdale coming in at goal? He's already had a price drop, so he's 4.4. So it's an interesting way to solve a cheap goalkeeper thing.
That's interesting.
He's going to get a ton of saves.
Yeah, he is going to get a ton of saves. That's okay. That's like half interesting. I'll give you that one. That's half. Everything else is 0. So then instead of a 0 to 10, I'll give him a 0.3
We're not
out of
at
10.
spit take territory yet, but
exactly. Can you counter that take at all? Do you have any like?
No.
You're usually meaner about Southampton than I am.
I don't know. It always depresses me when you look at clubs like Southampton, where they went through the recent moment where everyone was like, this is the model club. Like, they were what Brighton is now, Southampton were a decade ago. And everyone thought they were doing big think pieces on the backroom staff and how they made it all work and brought players through their academy. And now they're just kind of like, I don't know, I'd compare them to like Sunderland, like a historic club with a great fan base that is just kind of like, all the allure is not apparent at the moment.
Yeah. By the way, when I made that Ipswich 4 million defender transfer a minute ago, it asked me if I wanted to make the change because it would cost me an extra 0.4. I had not activated my wild card, even though I had made like 11 transfers already. So
wow.
Now, granted, I'm sure I would have caught it over the next 2 weeks, but still, it is a reminder: when you play your wild card, activate your wild card. Do not forget to do that. Do not take a minus 36 or whatever. Because I made like 11 transfers. All right. Well, that brings us to our final club here, Brandon. Is that right? We're down to Everton, club number 20. I said a couple kind of vague but nice things about them a second ago. Do you have any Everton thoughts?
Dominic Calvert-Lewin finally got some returns this weekend.
Goal and assist. Yep.
Their defense is really kind of the warning to fantasy managers is like past glory is not a promise of future returns. Pickford, it's not that Pickford is the victim of just bad defending. Pickford has been awful as well. Which going back to the Ramsdale thing, like Ramsdale is in a position to grab that number 1 shirt from Pickford potentially with the managerial change to England. I wonder if that is a big motivating factor, but their defense has just been so terrible. It kind of does. I think it's going to be circumstantial with Everton. Do the right injuries to our fantasy template happen to where suddenly Dominic Calvert-Lewin seems like a possible option? Because right now Everton just seem like a story to follow but not participate in.
I mean, a lot of there are quality players that keep dropping in price, right? Like so, like Michaelenko is at 4.4 million. Even Branthwaite, if he eventually comes back, he continues to drop in price. He's down to 4.9. Like he was quite good, even fantasy wise. He was quite good last season, and so. Like last season, they got off to a terrible start. They righted the ship. They had a nice close. They were a very reliable club for clean sheets down the stretch. And so I think that they could still figure it out, right? But they clearly haven't yet. And it's just so funny because, I mean, it's what a difference the final 10 minutes of that match makes, right? In terms of how we're thinking about them right now, because it's
could be a Dyche ball is back and we just weren't patient enough.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Everything's fine now, and now it's like, is he going to survive the international break? It's it's
just an absolute waking nightmare for everybody.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right, well, that's your rundown. And I think we're going to end it there, Brandon. So cool. We have another pod that we'll do next Sunday, where we'll cover maybe we'll cover some of the international or some of the transfer window moves too, because I thought I was following it, but I missed a bunch of 11th hour things, and so we can update people on that a little bit. We can talk more about wildcard. We can talk about more game week 4, any transfers one or more that you're planning to make, and we'll go from there. So
great.
Yeah. So once again, if you want to support the podcast, we'd sincerely appreciate it. Go to patreon.com/alwayscheating. Brendan, do you want to thank our producer patrons?
Big thanks, as always, to producers Mike DePietro, Trevor Ingerson, Dave Wagner-Lodahl, our buddy Chris Howell, Andy Penn, Nick Wright, Lazarus Janos, Jesse Halstead, Bruce Kerr, Brian Chin, Bob Kuhn, Ron Frost, Blair Jacobson, Todd Barley, Andy Portlock, Dan Parsons, Terrence O'Donnell, Kerry Swanson, Jefferson Turner, As A Does It, Francis Moore, Sam Shower, Craig Jackson, Caleb Robbie, Brian Clark, Thomas Tislove, Fro Jacobson, The Saint, Gareth H., Shalin F. Kadakia, Rishi Nigam, Noah and Louise, Travis Grant, Linus Fennerstrom, Matthew Skinner, Ben Coombs, Eric Kite, Rune Sandberg, and the 3 Jims, James Murray Wood, James C., James Holland, and, of course, Jack. Rate, review, subscribe wherever you get podcasts. Follow us wherever you get social media. Visit our website, alwayscheating.com, for all this information and more. I am newly excited about all the international break pods, Josh, to see how your wild card is going. And a big reminder, check out Josh's Substack at alwayscheating.substack.com, right?
It's the Always Cheating Substack. You're welcome to, if you want to start doing some, you want to start adding some takes in there as well, Brandon, feel free.
I got takes.
Yeah.
Listen, I've got takes.
It's surprisingly fun, I will say. More fun than I was expecting.
Excellent. All right. Yeah. Fantastic. All right. Well, I'll talk to you next week, Josh. See everybody later.
Sounds good. All right. Thanks, everybody. Bye.